Hey guys, it's your boy the Hood Tutor. Today we're gonna be asking ChatGPT how to pass the SAT and the ACT exam. We've all heard that ChatGPT can pass tests from various fields like medical exams, law, and ChatGPT has even passed a Google coding interview for level 3 engineers. So today we're going to ask ChatGPT to give us advice on how to pass the SAT and also branch out, maybe even to focus more specifically on how to pass the SAT math exam, how to pass the SAT writing, and how to pass the SAT reading. And then perhaps we'll move on from there to check the ACT as well to see what advice we can get from ChatGPT. So, without further ado, let's begin. So here we are. I've already asked ChatGPT for how to pass the SAT exam. So this is just a general advice question asking ChatGPT, hey, what can I do to pass the SAT exam or the SAT test? And these are some of the advice or some of the pointers that ChatGPT gave, right? First one says familiarize yourself with the test format. Yeah, we can agree that that would be a good advice, right? Because you have to know what the format of the test is. For instance, how many minutes are going to be devoted for each section, what forms the questions are going to come in. So these, at least the first one, the first point, we can agree that that is a relatively good point. The second one is to practice with official SAT practice test. That I can also agree is a good pointer as well. The third one is to identify your strengths and weaknesses. Yes, right. By practicing with the official text exam, I think that should be able to help you identify, for instance, if you're doing math, you can tell if you're weak in algebra, if you're weak in slope intercept form or geometry or whatever that may be. So, yes, that third point is also a good point. Develop a study plan. Yes, you do have to develop a study plan. For instance, if you're still in high school and you're working, you do definitely do need to develop a study plan, right? And a study plan also makes sense, right? Because if you think about it, once you've identified your weaknesses, then perhaps you don't have to devote as much time to your strength or to your strong areas, right? You can perhaps divvy up the times to benefit you in terms of practicing what the weaknesses are, right? So if you divide the times, it's going to be skewed towards your weak area where you have more time to perhaps study for those weak areas and practice more to address those areas before finally taking the exam. The fifth point is to utilize resources and utilize resources just general. So let's read what the description is. Says there are many resources available to help you prepare for the SAT, including study guides, tutoring services, and online resources. Take advantage of these resources to help you prepare. Yes, yes. I guess once that's clear, that makes sense, right? Because if you do find yourself studying, you do find yourself practicing, and yet you haven't achieved the sort of score range that you want to be in, perhaps that may be a good point for you or a good time for you to seek a tutor who can perhaps teach you or gauge you in terms of what you need to focus on to improve on your weak areas and perhaps even to also improve on some of your strengths as well. There's always room for improvement. And then number 6 says stay organized, keep track of important deadlines, test stage study materials to ensure that you are well prepared for the test. Okay, that is good. And then 7 says get enough rest, make sure you get enough sleep, and take care of your health in the days leading up to the test. A well rested mind and body can help you perform your best on test day. Yes, I couldn't agree more. You can't show up, you can't cram all your exams or your practice, in the previous night and hope to wake up well rested and in the right, state of mind to take the exam. So you need to practice way prior to the exams. And I think even on the day before the exam, you may just want to take it easy and probably do something fun as opposed to cramming too much practice into those days. So that's the general question regarding how to pass the exam or what you can do to pass the exam. Now let's ask it a more pointed or even a more focused question. And so let's ask it, okay, can I what can I do to improve my reading score on the SAT test? And let's see what we get. Oh, give me a second here. Let me refresh. So let's try again. Let's see what we get. It says, alrighty, so it says improving your reading score on the SAT test takes practice and persistence. Here are some tips to help you. And the first tip we get is read regularly. The more you read, the better you'll become at understanding complex text. Try to read a variety of material, including fiction and nonfiction. That is a great point. I guess the only point I would add to the first advice would be, in addition to perhaps reading from a variety of materials, including fiction and nonfiction, you may also read from different times as well, right? Because the tests, they pull the exams from all sorts of times, from the 1600. I've seen practice exams, or I've seen the exam pull material from the 1600 all the way to recent times like the 2000s. So read text from various times as well to see how the English have changed or how writing styles have changed over the years, so that you don't find yourself not prepared, at least for those. Number two says learn vocabulary. Yes, yes. A lot of the tests, well, I wouldn't say a lot, but part of the test, some of the questions are specifically focused on vocabulary. They will ask you a vocabulary and place it in a text and ask you, hey, what does this vocabulary mean? Or what does this word mean in the context of the passage? So knowing some vocabulary would help you a great deal in terms of identifying and determining what the meaning of the word may be in the context. Practice time management. Yes, time management, because the test is timed, right? So you do want to practice and make sure you feel comfortable within the time constraints that you're given. The fourth point here is to understand the questions. Yes, I mean, you do have to understand the questions in order to be able to come up with the answers. And then fifth, annotate the passage. Yes, in case you want to go back to a specific section of the test to extract some information to answer a question, annotating will help you get there quicker. And point of six says practice critical reading. Yes, I mean, if you do intend to improve on the reading section, you do need to practice critical reading. And that will include reading material from various texts, reading material from, say, the Times Magazine, reading scientific papers, and all sorts of material, right? In order to expose yourself to a variety of writing to prep yourself. And then point seven, take practice tests. I mean, this is probably one of the most important pointers you'll get here. Take practice tests, right? They say practice make perfect. Obviously, none of us can become perfect at anything, but practice definitely makes you better. I think that is what we can agree on, or what we can say about this. So let's move on to the math section and see what advice we can get from ChatGPT. So, what can I do to improve my math score on an SAT test. Let's see what we get. So it says improving your math score on SAT test requires a combination of understanding the math concept tested and developing problem solving strategies. Here are some tips to help you. The first one, review math concepts. Fantastic. Yes, you do have to review concepts ranging from algebra, geometry, all sorts of concepts in order to do well. It says learn formulas. Yes, I think the formulas would be provided to you, at least the ones that they think that you may need. Some of those may be provided to you, but I think learning and familiarizing yourself with these concepts will help you a great deal in terms of navigating on test day and becoming and cutting the time that may necessarily take you to maybe flip back and forth between the formula sheets, right? So that's definitely good. Practice mental math. Yes, mental math will help you get to the solution incredibly quickly, as opposed to using maybe a calculator or even working out the problems. Practice with a calculator. Yes, for complex problems, you do want to practice with a calculator. And then I think the SAT is also divided in sections, a section with a calculator and a section without the calculator. So practicing the section with the calculator is going to help you a great deal. Point of five, understand the questions. Yes, you definitely want to understand the questions so that you don't make simple mistakes because every point counts. Point of six, use process of elimination. Sometimes you may not know the answer off the top, right? But if you can eliminate the wrong answers, perhaps you can narrow your answer options to maybe two, right? If you have to pick between two answer options, at least you give yourself a 50% chance of getting the correct answer, assuming that the answer options that you eliminated were indeed wrong, right? And now the two remaining ones, one of them holds the correct answer. And then pointer seven says take practice tests. Yes, I mean this was one of the pointers from the reading section as well, right? You do want to take practice tests. I mean, take as many practice tests as you can, because by taking practice tests, you can restrict yourself to the required time. You can also expose yourself to the sort of material that are going to be asked on their test. So take practice exams. Take as many practice exams as possible. Time yourself, and continually you begin to see some incremental improvements. And then once you that will also, I mean, taking practice exam will also help you address your weaknesses, right? Not only determining your weaknesses, but once you determine what those weaknesses are, you can go about addressing those issues as well. So these are some of the pointers, at least, that ChatGPT is saying that we can use to pass the SAT exam. Now let's move on to the ACT and see what we can get from there. So let's ask ChatGPT, what can I do to pass the ACT test? So this is the general. We're starting off with a general question and seeing what we get. And then we'll also compare to see, hey, how similar are these advice, as comparison between the SAT and the ACT to see. I mean, there should be overlaps, right? Because, I mean, both tests are timed, and the sort of material that are being tested are also similar because this is high school material. Right, so the first point that we get here is understand the content, right? And if you read the description, it says the ACT test English, math, reading, and science. So make sure you understand the concepts and skills tested in each section. So that's a good advice. Number two, practice with official material. I mean, this is exactly what we were talking about from the previous pointers that ChatGPT gave us about SAT. Develop time management. I mean, I definitely thought, there would be overlap, right? And I mean, it makes sense because the test is testing basically the same material. Um, and then number four says learn test taking strategies. Yes, you definitely do want to take at least learn some tips tips and tricks about how to, maybe do shortcut maths and mental math, and even a calculator, right? There may be shortcuts that you can do. And I think practicing and learning these test taking strategies would definitely help you in addressing or even improving your score. And then use your calculator wisely, right? Your calculator may not be required for every math question in the ACT math, right? So we have to know which questions you would need to use your calculator on, and which ones perhaps you can use mental math or do some sort of shortcut to avoid wasting time. And then number 6 says read carefully. Yes, read carefully. I couldn't say this enough. You do want to read carefully. You do want to make sure you understand the questions very well before going on to answer the question. You don't want to make any assumptions. Make sure you read the questions, understand the questions, and you can do that only by reading carefully. Pointer 7 says manage test anxiety. I think one of the ways that you can manage test anxiety is just taking a great deal of practice exams, right? Take a lot of practice exams, see what the requirements are, the time restrictions, the material that's going to be addressed on the test. And knowing all this, really becoming acquainted with the material, the time limitations, and even your own weaknesses and strengths as well, I think that will help you a great deal in terms of addressing anxiety. So we can try to go within the various sections of the exam. For instance, how do you pass the English? Let's do that. Let's try the English and the science, since we've already looked at the SAT, the math, and the reading. So let's focus for the ACT. Let's focus on perhaps how to improve your score on the English and the science section. So how can I improve my English score on the ACT test? Let's see what we get. Improving your English score on the ACT test requires a combination of understanding the grammar rules tested and developing strong reading comprehension skills. Here are some tips to help you. Review your grammar rules. Definitely. That's a definite must. Practice identifying errors. Yes, you can practice identifying, and practice identifying errors will help you sort of know what sort of questions or what sort of errors the SAT or the ACT loves to test, right? So that you're better prepared to face those specific questions when you do meet them on test day. Improve your vocabulary. Yes, improving your vocabulary is also a definite must. There are questions in there that ask you straight up, hey, how does this vocabulary fit within this passage? Number 4, read wisely. Yeah, so reading comprehension is a key part of the ACT English section. Read a variety of material, including fiction and nonfiction, to improve your comprehension skills. Yes, I would add to that, read from different times, right? As we discussed previously. Point of 5 says understand the passage. Make sure you understand the main idea and purpose of the passage before answering questions. Pay attention to the author's tone and the structure of the passage. Yes, they pick passages from all kinds of time and all sorts of fields, right? They pick passages from science, they pick passages from art, passages from literature. So you want to acquaint yourself with a variety of material. It's kind of like your diet, right? You want to eat various diets to address various nutrients. So in the same way, you want to read from various materials to address any sort of deficiency you may have within your reading comprehension. So that makes sense. Point 6 says use process of elimination. Yes, we've talked about this, right? Process of elimination sometimes can help you improve your probability of getting the correct answer, assuming that the answer options that you eliminate are indeed wrong. And then point 7 says take practice test. Yes, practice test. Couldn't be said enough, right? You do want to take practice tests to know what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are, and some of the questions that frequent these kinds of exams. Now let's move on to the science section and see how we can improve specifically the science section. So, how can I improve my science score on the SAT test? Let's see what we get. And it looked like ChatGPT is taking some time to to address the question, or it may just be okay. Finally, I was gonna say it may just be thinking about the question, but I highly doubt that was the problem. That's just probably it's just maybe this may be a traffic time, so maybe a whole lot of people are using ChatGPT now, so the service may be slow or who knows. So first pointer has been given. It says understand the content. The ACT science section tests your understanding of scientific concepts and your ability to interpret and analyze data. Make sure you're familiar with the concepts and terminology in biology, chemistry, physics, and earth science. Yes, this is a great point. Pointer 2 says learn to interpret graphs and tables. Yes, graphs and tables are the science section just it really tests how well you can read tables and interpret data. And interpreting data may come from reading graph, maybe reading all sorts of charts that scientific or scientists use to communicate their scientific findings, right? So that is a great point. And then the third point says focus on the big picture. So the ACT science section tests your ability to understand scientific research and draw conclusions from it. Focus on the main idea of each passage and use your critical thinking skills to analyze the data. Yes, some of the passages or some of the questions are going to be asking you, what do you think the main point about this passage is? And by focusing on the big picture, that'll help you answer those type of questions. And then bullet point 4 says practice with sample questions. Yes, you do want to practice with sample questions, reading graphs, analyzing data. So let's see what it says. It says the ACT offers official practice tests and sample questions on its website. Use these resources to familiarize yourself with the format and content of the science section. That is a great point. Number 5 says use process of elimination. We've talked about this various times. And I think by now you know the importance of using process of elimination because there are some questions which you're just not going to know, right? And I think on those specific questions, having a process of elimination strategy will help you narrow the answer options that you have and improve your chances of getting the correct answer. Number 6, manage your time effectively. The ACT science section is a timed test, so it's important to manage your time effectively. Learn to pace yourself and allocate your time wisely. Yes, because it's a timed test, you want to know what or how much time you want to spend on each question. And if you find yourself spending more time than you need, maybe you want to mark it and perhaps return back to that question once you finish the test and have some time remaining. Then you can come back and address those questions. Number 7 says take notes. Yes, jot down important information as you read through each passage. This will help you remember key details and stay focused on the main idea. And then if you need to go back into the passage to extract some sort of information to answer a question by jotting down notes, you can go specifically or go down to that specific section so that you don't spend time rereading the passage in order to come across the information that you're being asked. So these are some of the pointers that ChatGPT has given us in terms of passing the SAT and then the ACT exam. And in my opinion, I mean, I think these are good. These are good points. Obviously there's always room for improvements, and even in addition to these pointers or this advice, you can also add your own. You can add your own pointers to it, right? And cater these pointers to yourself, and help you address it or customize it to help fit maybe your schedule or your lifestyle in order to do well in the exam. I mean, the SAT and the SCT are a great time to showcase what you've learned in high school, and you can do that well, right? You can better prepare yourself to do that by following these pointers. And if I mean, do comment in the comment section if you have any other pointers that you think that ChatGPT didn't address, right? And I think that would be a good point for discussion. But I think this concludes the advice that ChatGPT can give us. Thank you for watching. Bye.